Ain't no way bro pulled up saying what's up guys looking like that.
I don't know what that's supposed to mean, so what's up guys? It's been a minute, got some catching up to do. Today we're taking a look at Steam Detectives. This was recommended a long time ago by Eric Brune, or This Is Really Stupid IC on YouTube. Thank you for the recommendation, my friend, this one's for you. Steam Detectives. This is a series that ran from 1998 to 1999, ran for one full season. It was based on a manga that we'll come back to a little bit later. The big thing to know is that it was created by Kia Asamiya, who has worked on many things but is most known for Nadesico. He's also worked on official manga adaptations of Star Wars and Batman. Keep the Batman thing in mind, because you'll see some similarities or some clear inspirations here in Steam Detectives. Anyway, Steam Detectives, it is set in a steampunk world. It kind of feels like early 1900s London or something. They live in Steam City where everything's powered by steam. They have all this crazy technology that's somehow steam powered, like robots and, airplanes and all kinds of complex machinery. It follows Narutaki, this young detective who is sort of carrying the mantle for his parents, who are detectives, and they have passed away, sadly. He lives in this big building in the city with a butler who reminds me of Alfred. It's hard not to be reminded. He's this cool butler who is also like a mechanic, and he can do all kinds of cool stuff. He also has this nurse, Ling Ling, who lives with him, and when she's not helping out at the hospital, she likes to help out with these cases. Narutaki is not old enough to drive, but he has a very cool robot named Goriki, and Goriki is always at his command and helping out, fight other robots and protect his young master here. Narutaki's also got a bunch of cool gadgets. He has this gun that has a bunch of different attachments on it, but every episode is very, kind of standalone. It's a very episodic series. Narutaki is investigating some sort of mystery, some sort of crime, and there's a series of villains who are kind of reoccurring throughout this thing. You have the Machine Baron, who is just this completely goofy guy who is in love with Goriki, and so he wants to basically steal Goriki and make him his own robot. And you've got the Crimson Scorpion, who is always disguised, and she reveals herself at the end and battles Narutaki. And you've got Lebled, who is this sort of fancy man, but he's very mysterious, and he has sort of a relationship with Ling Ling's sister, Lang Lang. Going into this thing, I just felt like this was a show I could have imagined myself watching back on Toonami growing up as a kid, or, on Fox Kids in the mornings in between Yu-Gi-Oh! And Monster Rancher or something. Kind of gave those nostalgic vibes, even though I'd never seen this before. It feels like a show that's aimed at kids for the most part, but it can get surprisingly dark. To be honest, at first I'm like, this is cute. And then in the middle, I'm kind of like, it's losing me here. I don't know if I want to finish this. There's just no plot development. There's no story development, no character development. Is this ever going to go anywhere? Because it was starting to get a little stale. But I can say towards the end, we finally began to see some of that character development. The villains start getting a lot more interesting. We see some of their backstories. They have a lot more depth at the end. Things are finally coming together. And we get some dark episodes. We get some really serious subject matter about life and death. Not all the characters we meet make it out alive, and I'm not going to spoil anything, but even just some of the, single episode side characters we're introduced to for the plot of one episode, that person doesn't make it out alive after we're beginning to like them. And yeah, it can get a little dark. And Eric Brune alluded to this, how this seemed to be inspired by the Big O. And I definitely was feeling that connection as I was watching this. The manga for Steam Detectives came out actually way earlier. Yeah, it's possible that the Big O could have drawn inspiration from this, because this too, it kind of feels a little bit like Batman with robots, but in this steampunk setting. It has those detective Batman superhero vibes, if you replace the Batmobile with a robot companion, that's kind of what you get. I kind of feel like it's Batman or Big O meets something like Medabots in a way, very much geared towards kids for the most part. Fun character designs, great world building here. It's just not something to take too seriously. until, you know, it occasionally does get very serious, and then it sort of hits. I do like those more serious episodes, sort of drew me in more as an adult, whereas, you know, the lighthearted stuff I would have loved when I was younger. I thought the animation was very fun, very nostalgic looking. As I mentioned, the music is great. It's got this really cool jazzy rock soundtrack, really catchy battle themes, and I love the soundtrack. Really good stuff. I'm not going to spoil the ending too much. The ending leaves a bit to be desired. It's a little bit unclear what happens, and there's not a lot of people talking about this series from what I've found. But it seems like people are still trying to decipher the ending, and it's funny because the ending isn't in the manga at all. It's very different. So the anime came out towards the tail end of the manga, which had already been going on for several years, but the manga didn't end until later, and yeah, it's totally different. I do like the look of the manga. I just kind of scanned through it a little bit. I didn't take a lot of time to dive into it. It does look like the manga can be a little bit more spicy on occasion. Just saying that. I don't know, this was a cool series. I'm glad I watched it. Like I say, in the middle, I kind of was falling off. It was starting to lose me, but by the end of it, I was like, this thing is getting good, and I enjoyed it. Definitely took me back to, you know, the good old days, that era of anime I grew up with. It's a silly show. It can be heartbreaking at times as well, but it's mostly a pretty fun, lighthearted show. I would recommend checking it out. It's definitely kind of obscure, it seems, and underrated, so if you can find it, check it out. I think that's all I have to say today. I'm going to keep this one short and sweet. I'll be back as soon as I can. Thank you, anybody sticking around and watching. I appreciate you. Have a good one. Take care. I'll see you soon.